It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com.
My fellow conservatives, are you tired of being lied to by the liberal media monopoly? Well, fear no more. My great love for America is driving me forward. Turn your radio dial all the way to the right, America, and learn the truth. It's time for Pep Talk with me, Preston Pepper.
Good evening, all of you good people who've taken the time to turn your radio dials all the way to the right to get the truth right here from me, Preston Pepper, on Pep Talk. This show is brought to you by Bug Offs, Pest Control, and the wonderful people at Fairchild's Funeral Parlor down on Broadway in Nyack. Fairchild's, where we say nobody gets buried alive by burial costs. That said, we're going to move right on. Now, old Pep has been running around today, and I'm a little bit tired. The reason I've been running around, Bubbles and I have decided we need a little vacation, and we're heading up to the state of Maine. Maine! As Maine goes, so goes the Union, it was once said, but it's not like that anymore. In a couple of last elections, the people of Maine have voted Democrat, and old Bubs and I are going to go up there and see if we can do something about that. We're going to rough it a little bit at Bubbles' Cottage. It's the big one next to the Bush's place in Kennebunkport, and, it's kind of funny. Everybody thinks the Bush compound is so luxurious. Compared to what Bubbles has, people continually mistake it for the guest house. And I think that gets the Bushes a little bit jealous, but I'm not going to worry about them. They've had their time in the sun, and now it's old Pep's time. We're going to really enjoy ourselves. I can't wait to get to Maine, see some of my good friends like Mad Dog and Dinty and Dwight and all of those great people in the state of Maine. We're going to eat lobster. We're going to just sit on the beach, do a little bit of fishing, and I got a couple of things I'm writing. Of course, I'm always busy like that, but the natural setting of Maine always seems to get the juices flowing, and I'm sure that I'm going to come back with a lot of stuff. What kind of stuff, you might ask yourself? Well, I'm working on a children's story. It's kind of an allegorical tale about a sailboat. One of the things that old Pep is really concerned about, I told you last week on Pep Talk what had happened. I was hanging out with one of my buddies, and Earl, who works for the school board down here in Rockland County, said, Pep, it's really a tragedy. We're referring, of course, to the national holiday on July 4th. He said, Pep, it is incredible. We gave a little quiz to 65 students at the local middle school. We asked 4 questions. The questions were, how many stars are on the United States flag? How many stripes? What is the name of the national anthem? And who wrote it? Not one of those children was able to supply 4 correct answers. Can you believe that? Our own children are being robbed of their rich heritage by liberals who have taken over the school board and have decided that American history is just not worth teaching, that the kids don't need it, that the kids need, I don't know what the kids need. They don't seem to know either. But the truth be known, the kids don't know anything about any of the people who made this great country, the United States of America, what it is today. Think about another country that offers all this country offers. I can't think of one, and yet our kids don't know a single thing about our national history. It's enough to scare the pants off of you. Kids with this lack of sound grounding in the basic tenets of history, of economics, of geography, etc., can be only expected to do one thing: to heed the siren song, the call of socialism. They're going to listen to that Bolshevik out in the harbor singing away to them instead of the challenging Song of Lady Liberty, which says every man is responsible to himself. That's not what the liberals would have you believe. The liberals will have you believe that we are our brother's keeper. Believe me, I know my brother, and I'm not keeping him. You know how it is. Another funny thing about liberals is they're always talking about how generous they are. They're not generous at all. Case in point, I was eavesdropping a couple of days ago on the platform over in Tarrytown to get the train to the city, where I had a business lunch lined up, and I hear somebody say, you know, I think I'm going to lose my house. And his friend, obviously a liberal, you can always tell by the cut of their clothes, says, it's a real shame that you're going to lose your house. You know, if I were rich, you wouldn't have to worry about losing your house. And the other fella says, I wouldn't? And he says, you would not have to worry about losing your house were I a rich man, because if I were a rich man, I'd buy you a brand new house. And the fella says, "Man, that's amazing. If you were rich, you'd buy me a brand new house." Well, I know you're not rich, so can I sleep on your couch? And the other one goes, are you crazy? Of course not. That's the way the liberals work. When you ask them for something, you get nothing. All they want to do is give you the shirt off of somebody else's back. They are not like we are. They are not like the kind of people I reach out to every Tuesday night on Pep Talk. Small R Republicans who love America more than they love their own children and are ready to make any type of sacrifice to make sure that Lady Liberty will always be there, standing there with her torch held high in the harbor, beckoning to people from all over the world who come here with the moxie to make it, not people looking for a handout. Enough said. Well, I told you I was headed off to the city for a business lunch, and it was a splendid, splendid affair. You know, every time that I dine out with Rupert Murdoch, I just love it. I love the man. Rupert Murdoch, as I said earlier, has always been one of my best friends and a special sort of mentor to me. He always wanted me to get into the newspaper game, but I always, you know, I didn't refuse him. I just always kind of found an excuse for not getting involved in the Murdoch empire. I don't know why. I probably would have fit in just perfectly, but I had other things to do, and Rupert realizes that. He says, I know you said no to my numerous offers, but Pep, I want to try something out on you. You know, Roger's not getting any younger, and neither am I. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, my God, old man Murdoch's going to want me to arrange a Viking funeral for him, too. I mean, I'm having enough trouble as it is getting Ebenezer McAdoo's Viking funeral together. You don't know how few strippers know how to fire an arrow. I mean, you know, we need archers and we need beautiful women and to play the part of Valkyries if we're going to get it just right. I still have a number of casting calls in the immediate future. We'll see what we can do. So Murdoch says to me, Pep, I want you to write a couple of stories for me. And I said, well, stories about what? He said, you know, I got a hell of a story that we'd like you to investigate. And he says to me, do you believe? And I said, believe? You're starting to sound like my dad, Rupert. And he says, no, do you believe in UFOs? And I said, believe in UFOs? Well, I don't disbelieve in UFOs, but I've never really given it much thought. I mean, a UFO, an unidentified flying object? I mean, there was a fella in our county who believed he saw him, but it just turned out he lived a little too close to the skeet shooting range, you know. No, I really have not had any experience with this sort of thing. Well, Rupert Murdoch says, look, Pep, I need somebody with sterling credentials, and since you've picked up that title, you know, you might be able to sell some papers in England where my popularity is kind of plummeted. And I knew all about that. You know, the damn Labor people had launched some investigation about him hacking, you know, telephone numbers, which as far as I'm concerned was perfectly legitimate journalistic protocol, anything to get his story. You know, Rupert knows more about newspapers than probably anybody on the planet for Christ's sake. And he said, you know, they were gunning for me. They were gunning for me. They don't treat well with Fleet Street because those laborites, like the liberals in the United States, are always trying to put one over on the people. And I try to tell the truth. And he said, by the way, I must commend you, Pep, on all of the efforts you're making to improve education. I tell you the truth, it's getting so that the kids in the United States couldn't understand one of my newspapers, and we thought that the reading level was sufficiently low. Now we're going to have to set the bar even lower. I mean, what's going on? And I said, I don't know. You know what the liberals are all about. Keep them ignorant and then promise them the moon, and you got them in the palm of your hand. They're not like us, Rupert. They're not people who want to work. They're not people who want to make their own decisions. He said, well, anyway, getting back to the UFOs. You know, for a long time, it's been alleged that in the 1950s, and I knew about this, a UFO crashed into the desert in Arizona. What do you think of that? I said, again, I don't know what to think of it. He says, well, apparently it really happened, you know, and it was covered up. And I said, who would want to cover something up like that? And he said, Pep, the liberals. I said, Rupert, why would the liberals? And at that moment, we were cut off because, you know, I was sitting there. We were at the abattoir, I might as well tell you. And the abattoir, which is run by my good friend Dominique Simone, is the most popular eatery in town right now. I've got to take my hat off, and I'll just put it down for a minute, to Dominique Simone, one of the most talented people in the restaurant business. As I've said before, his family's been in the business for over 100 years, going way back to Bordeaux in France, where they used to be in the slave trade. When the slave trade was abolished, they got right into restaurants using the skills that they had picked up in the slave trade. And Dominique really runs a tight ship, and he came over there, and, you know, and he greeted us, and then he walked away, and who comes up? Rod Stewart. You know, Rod Stewart and I have become great friends since I become the Laird, and, you know, he brought with him Ian McGregor, and I mean, all the Scots seek me out now. They are so happy with what we have done at Done Deal with our new Glen Beck 12-year-old style Scotch. They say they can't drink enough of us. Enough of it. And I was so happy to hear that the people in Scotland are finally thriving again after years of being bamboozled by liberalism disguised as laborism. They have thrown off the yoke and allowed a conservative administration, me, to take over things and get things running. We've got a whole new line of products. We got Scottish vodka, Scottish tequila, anything you want we can make. I was talking with my good friend Mr. Carnegie, who is completely on my side now. I call him Tom. He calls me Pep. And I said, boys, I am so glad that you feel that way. I'm going to put the Bonnie back in Bonnie, Scotland. And then they said goodbye and walked away, and I was waving at Henry Kissinger. It's very hard, you know, to really get things done sometimes at the abattoir, but the food is worth it. So Rupert says, wow, you are becoming quite a popular person, Mr. Pepper. And I said, yeah, and by the way, Rupert, you know, you probably should call me Laird, at least in public, you know. And he shakes his head. He says, okay, Laird. And he said, well, anyway, the spacecraft, it crashed in the desert. And crashed in the desert, and there was a big cover-up by the liberals. Do you know why? And I said, you're going to tell me, aren't you? He says, of course. He says, the liberals did not want the American people nor any other people to know that an advanced civilization from across the galaxy had used free market principles. It was all in the spaceship. We put together all the information that the people in another planet, well, you wouldn't really call them people, but the beings, the sentient beings from another part of the universe, had used conservative government and market principles to develop technologies far and away beyond anything we could have come up with. They were afraid that if the people on planet Earth realized this, took a look at what conservative thinking was able to develop, that they would have turned their backs on liberalism forever. I said, my God, is there nothing? There is nothing, Pep. There's nothing that the liberals won't do. They're coming after me. They're going to be coming after you soon. It's a good thing you got that castle up in Scotland. You and Bubbles may have to hold down there and get ready for a siege. I said, my God. This story is going to change things, though, when the American people find out that what it's going to take to cross the universe and colonize other star systems is good, strong, conservative government, small r republicanism. It's going to be tough for them to ever elect a Democrat dog catcher again, even if there's a rabies epidemic. I want you to cover the story, Pep. I love your writing style. And I'm thinking to myself, my God, Mr. Newspaper himself wants me to go out to the desert and cover this story. And I'm saying, Rupert, I'm really touched by this, but I got so much on my plate right now. I'm running a distillery. I'm a consultant to numerous politicians. I'm doing a blog. I'm doing Pep Talk. And John Milius wants me to make a movie. And he wants you to make a movie? What movie do you want to make, Pep? And I said, well, we're working on a script now. We're trying to shop it around. The liberals are doing everything they can to make sure the movie doesn't get made. But the movie is a pretty interesting movie. It's called Right Wing's Rocket, and it's a story about a right-wing journalist who has to flee for his life on a spaceship, blah, blah, blah. And Rupert says, my God, that sounds like the kind of movie I'd like to watch with my young bride. That's something there, too. Rupert's got a young bride. He got himself a first-class trophy wife, but then I realized she wants to become a movie producer. So I said, Rupert, we are looking for financing for the film, and I was going to talk to my prospective father-in-law. The only problem is he wants me to put together a Viking funeral before he'll do anything with me, and putting together Viking funerals is not as easy as one would think it is. I mean, we'd no longer live in the days when it was easy to just throw somebody in a Viking ship, cover him in pitch and tar, push him down with the tide, and fire a bunch of flaming arrows into the pyre. And Rupert says, yeah, I guess you're right. He said, well, I'll talk to my wife about that. And he said, marriage is a funny thing, Pep. And I said, what do you mean? Marriage is a funny thing? He said, you've been married a lot of times, haven't you? I said, yeah, I've been married about 8 times. He says, yeah, well, I have only been married twice, or was it 3 times? He said, what do you think is the key? What do you think is the key to a good marriage? And I said, well, I don't know. A good marriage, it might be, I guess it, and Rupert looked at me and he said, the key to a good marriage, Pep, is twin beds and separate bank accounts. If you got that, you're okay. And, I said, that's probably true. What else could I say to him? So I said, look, Rupert, this is a very attractive offer you have for me. He said, if it comes off well, I'd really like you to take over for Roger. And, that was quite a compliment because, Roger Ailes he's one of my idols. He is one of my idols. But, nobody's getting any younger. And, I wouldn't mind running Fox News for a couple of years. I mean, it's well compensated. I could probably bring Pep Talk over there. Don't worry, Richard, I'll bring you with me. I got a lot of people now who depend on me, and as I've said, when I put this hat on and became, the Laird of Dundeel, there was a certain sense of noblige oblige. I've got to take care of these people. In fact, it's made me think about whether or not we should just discard democracy altogether and go back to feudalism. I can run things a lot better than most of the elected officials I've run across in my time, and I don't think it would be bad. I don't think it would be bad. Just go out to Eagle's Claw and see how the ground screw responds to my tender ministrations. I know how to keep people happy. I know how to offer them the carrot, and when it has to be done, I know how to crack the whip. Well, anyway, we left it at that. And by the way, one of the interesting things that Rupert told me about was Scientology. He told me that years ago, he had been talking to Swifty Lazar, the great Hollywood agent, and Swifty had said, you know, Tom Cruise was probably last in line when they were handing out the IQ points. And I said, you know, well, maybe that's true. And Rupert said Scientology would appeal to somebody like that, and it's quite evident from the kind of movies he makes and the way he runs his life. That guy might make a lot of money playing other people, but he offers very little. I think he's involved with some kind of evil cult. You know, after the UFO story, Pep, and I said, okay, you want me to delve into Scientology? He says, you'd be the perfect man for the job. I mean, that bit you did when you put on the wig and infiltrated Occupy basically destroyed the whole movement. I had a lot of admiration for you, young man, when you did that, and I'd like you to do something to the Scientologists as well. And, you know, I thought about that, and I said, look, Rupert, you are really piling it on today, but I can't give you a definite answer, you know. I personally want to make a political run. I want to become the governor. And, well, first I'm not going to be the governor first, but first I want to become the mayor of Upper Nyack. And another person comes up to the table. You know, he's got a bottle of Glenbeck in his hand, and he goes, oh, Pep, this is the greatest scotch. I said, yes. You know, and... you know, they kind of usher him off, and it was a crazy day. This is the way my life is these days. Since I've put on this hat, since I have started to speak my own mind, since I became the Laird instead of just Mr. Pepper, I mean, I am being besieged for interviews. People want me to write articles. Bubbles wants to buy me a baseball team to run. It's getting to be a little bit too much, and I called up my dad, and I said, Pop, you know, all I ever wanted to do in life was to make you proud. And he said, oh, yeah, that's what you say. Well, you know what? You don't make me proud when you're carrying on like this, dropping names, running all over the place, shooting your mouth off. That's not small R Republicanism. You're playing it like you were P.T. Barnum. I don't know what's gotten into you. I just hope you don't lose Bubbles over all of this, because as far as I'm concerned, you never stayed with one woman long enough to work your way through the whole Kama Sutra, if you know what I mean. And I said, oh, come on, Pop. He said, that's the damn truth. You never were with one woman long enough to work your way through the Kama Sutra. And I gotta say that to you. What are you doing now? Now you're gonna be running Fox News. You're gonna be writing stories about UFOs. You're gonna be running a whiskey company. It's too much. You got to think simple. You got to concentrate on one thing. Before, when you were a boy, you wanted to be a ball player. I thought that was all right. And Bingo was showing you how to throw that spitball. Or was it a changeup? It was a spitter, Dad, but we said it was a And he said, and then you were off to school, and then you were going to become a journalist, and then you were working for Ollie North, and then you were the major domo for Richard Nixon, and then you were doing this and you were doing that. You know, Pep, you gotta come down to earth and concentrate on something. And I said, Dad, did I really disappoint you that much? And he said, yeah, I guess you did, because I'm still waiting for those reservations you promised you'd get me to the abattoir. And then I realized that even my father was hitting me up for something these days. It's really strange how life can change, you know. That's when I started remembering how simple it used to be a little while ago when I was doing the show, the Preston Pepper Show, out of the rat hole in Long Island. And, you know, I was just thinking that maybe some of the fans who have come over to Pep Talk with me would love to hear the way it used to sound when I wasn't obligated to do so many things for so many people. And I'm going to give you a listen right now. My God, they've screwed up the sound. You know, this is what happens all the time to me. I had a great little thing there, and now it's not going to work. You know, those were the days I had a live audience. Well, it was a canned live audience, but I would just get up there and I would scream and yell and jump around. I was drunk most of the time. I'm on the wagon now. And I used to have fun. You know, it's funny about the wagon, too. I was with a friend of mine today, and he's been having a pretty tough time, and he told me all the things. His marriage is falling apart. I don't think he's going to work his way through the Kama Sutra with that woman, I tell you. And he said, well, my marriage is in trouble, and this is bad, and this is bad, and that's bad, and I owe money to the government. And I said, oh, God, I hate the government. You know, anytime a friend of mine tells me he's having problems with the IRS, I go ballistic, and I had to call up a few people I knew to see what I could do. I can generally pull strings with any branch of the United States government, but the IRS or something else. They think they're better than normal people, and God, does that get me angry. I'm on the phone. I said, do you know who you're talking to, mister? My name is Preston Pepper, a.k.a. the Laird of Dundee. Do you know how much money my fiancé is worth? And he hung up on me, and I called back, and it was busy. The IRS has no right to treat an American citizen that way. That's all I have to say. Well, anyway, I said to my friend, you know, I empathize with you. I sympathize with you, and there's nothing I damn well can do. I tried calling Clarence Thomas. He said, Pep, no, the IRS, I can't. You know, that's one thing. I hate the IRS. The only thing damn worse than the IRS, I'm going to tell you right now, is the EPA. You know who lost all the jobs for the American people? Oh, they're always saying we sent our jobs over to China because the wages were cheaper. It's not that at all. It's a combination of the EPA and the tort lawyers. What do you think happened, for Christ's sake? You know, a friend of mine is a consulting chemist, and he did a big job about 20 years ago for IBM. The result of his study was simply this, that IBM was sitting on a toxic time bomb, and one of these days they were going to get hit by the EPA, who was going to walk in there and start issuing summonses. Can you believe that? The EPA drove jobs out of America at an alarming rate. All of this big to-do about the environment, man, it just makes me sick. I don't call them the EPA, I call them the green monster. They're the most dangerous thing in America is the EPA. If you take a pee on your lawn, and the EPA will show up the next day with a bunch of inspectors and write you $1 million fine. I am sick of the EPA, I'm sick of the IRS, and I'm sick of the kind of candidates we have. Do you think Mitt Romney, the gosh darn Mormon jellyfish, has the guts to eradicate this problem by simply phasing out the EPA and the IRS overnight? I doubt it. That's why I'm hoping that one day I get to run for president of the United States, mister, and I am going to present myself as the type of president, the type of libertarian president who is going to clear up these messes and bring prosperity back to the American people. I've seen that I can do it. I've seen that I can do it up in Scotland. I've got that place functioning like a Swiss watch. They love the scotch we're producing. 12-year-old style scotch. In 2 weeks, in 3 weeks, it's out on the shelves. In 4 weeks, the bottles are empty and they're coming back to be refilled. We've got prestigious customers like Prince Philip himself is going to have us get the royal seal. Meanwhile, back in America, what's going on? All of these darn liberals are gloating over Obamacare. Well, the joke's on them, because when a liberal cheers Obamacare, what they're actually doing is they're cheering Romney Care. It's like the Trojans are cheering that wooden horse as it comes into the walls of Troy. In fact, I told some Republican operatives, why are we fighting it? We created it. We ought to show them that we can do things instead of playing this namby-pamby silly game. This isn't politics. This is like running a 12-year-old boys club. I'll show you guys how to do it if you got the guts to make me your candidate, because I can run things. I run Scotland. I run Eagle's Claw. Soon I'm going to be running Upper Nyack, and when that day comes, mister, people are going to be happy, because when they go to work in the mornings, they're going to find for once the trains run on time. I am tired of all of this liberal poppycock. I am tired of neo-liberals and neo-conservatives and all of these people, all these neos who are fiddling while the United States of America is burning. I want to do something for America, and I want to do it now. But I'll bide my time. I'll bide my time. I'm a wise old warrior, and I know exactly what I have to do. And that's the message I want to send out to America. Right now, I got plenty of opportunities that I got because I was ready to roll up my sleeves and do the work. Nobody handed Preston Pepper anything. Oh, yeah, I might be the fiancé to a wealthy woman, but I did that myself. I didn't have anybody help me with that, and I am tired of all of these people saying I was born to wealth and privilege. I was not. I came from a terrible background. My mother was a liberal who died crying for Medicare in a North Carolina madhouse. I have time and time again on Pep Talk gone over this with you, and it seems to no avail because America is falling deeper and deeper and deeper into depression. The economy is horrible. 40,000 people an hour will lose their homes to foreclosure because of the Obama administration and its wretched economic policies. We need somebody in there who's ready to crack the whip, to get the deflationary cycle going and burn out the rot. I want to be the man who does that. I want to carry out the economic policies that Secretary Mellon wanted to use in the Great Depression to make America strong. And then that socialist, that Bolshevik Roosevelt came in, and we're still paying the price today. I want to save America, and I want to do it yesterday. I promise you that this isn't over, but right now I got to go home and pack my bags. I'm going to go up to Maine and relax for a couple of days, but I think you realize that old Pep is really getting angry. Old Pep is totally fed up with all of the hypocrisy in both political parties. What we need is a strong man who can crack the whip and get America back on the road to success. This has been Preston Pepper. Have a nice week. I'll see you in 2.
It's not just radio, it's Rockland World Radio. RocklandWorldRadio.com